What's going on, motherfuckers? Welcome to the Crocs and Hot Pockets podcast. My name is Naaackers, and today is March 3rd, 2019, and this is episode number 88. Tonight on the podcast, we have Sub2r and team. We have Rich, Vonda, and Serge all hanging out tonight. How you guys all doing?
Surviving.
How about you in the back?
A mouthful of cream puffs.
We're going to get back to these guys in just a hot second. During the show, if you guys would like to ask a question to be answered during the Q&A at the end of the podcast, you can use the exclamation Q command in chat followed by your question to submit that to us. If we're not live and you'd like to ask a question or submit any kind of feedback at all, feel free to shoot me an email at crocs@naaackers.com. And lastly, if you enjoy the show and you like what we do here, please consider leaving a review for the podcast on iTunes or whatever podcast app you use. So we're just going to jump right into this. No lag, no latency. Rich, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you guys got going on over there?
That's a long story.
Good, because we got time.
We got time. Good. Well, I was just telling someone the other day that, you know, we've got the streaming camera that we just built, not just built, but just went into production. And it started out being a solution for a technical problem that we had. We were developing high-speed 3D imaging, and then it turned into a functioning lab camera, and Serge went and started posting pictures of that on YouTube. And then Von Whiskey found us and said, "Hey, you guys ought to make a camera for Twitch." And we said, "What's that?" And when we saw what we were building, we had originally designed it to be for innovators, for research. I mean, so we made this open architecture that gives you the ability to play with it. And matter of fact, we encourage people to crack the case and get into the camera and really dive into it and play with it. We realized it wouldn't take much more to make it a good camera for Twitch streamers. And so that's what we spent the last couple of years doing, is developing this. And last Friday, just a couple of hours, 72 hours ago, we picked up the first batch of final motherboards and spent the next 2 days programming them, and they get assembled this week and start getting shipped out. So it's a good time.
Same thing.
What's that?
When you said motherboards, that makes it.
Oh, you were thinking motherfuckers. Well, I only call them motherfuckers when they blow up.
Which, ironically, so going back to the beginning of the story, because whenever we have guests on the show, I always like starting from the beginning, figuring out how people got to where they are and kind of the steps that led them to present time. So was Vaughn trying to find, how did he come across you guys? Or like at what part of the day did he go, okay, well, I'm trying to find something else? Did you ever have that conversation from him and figure out like when that conversation started?
So yeah, I have the date. I actually have the email he sent to us.
No
and
shit.
Here we go. Oh wait, this one's got a lens on it. Cool. So we built this little camera for use in our core technology, which was doing high-speed 3D imaging. And we built this little guy, and we called, get him right, Rich. We called him Piggy. We called him Piggy because he looks like the pig from Angry Birds.
He actually does. It really does.
So, I mean, we were really proud of this little thing, and it's got a interchangeable camera board and dual microphones and kind of the basis of what we were building. And Serge would make these little videos and post these videos on YouTube. And the first one that we posted that got a lot of attention was the fact that we could do 720p with this one at 60 frames a second. And it's a lock 60 frames a second. So like your lower end cameras, as the illumination goes down in the room, as things get darker, they slow down and you end up with these real blurry images. And so this little camera can hold its own down to very low light.
Now,
which is really cool about it.
is that by design, or is that just kind of a downfall of those types of cameras? Because like we all know the performance of a USB webcam like the Logitech C920 or C922 are very much predicated on the amount of light that you have in your room. And then
Right.
as soon as you up that brightness, performance tanks. As soon as you get into low light, the performance tanks. So what's the story behind that?
Well, it's all gets down to physics. It's all how many photons are you going to get in a pixel in a given period of time? The more photons up to a point, the better the image. So their main goal is how to preserve the quality of the image from an illumination standpoint. And for that, they'll sacrifice everything.
Okay.
So they'll slow it down, they'll extend the exposure time, and that allows more photons to hit the pixel. And then you can get a brighter image. And for what they're designed to do, that's perfectly fine if you don't care about motion capture. But if you're trying to do, like, this is 60 frames a second, and it's great because it's got, excellent motion capture. So our camera design is locked frame rates. We actually call it UFPS, unique frames per second, because we will, if we tell you 60, we'll send you 60.
59.95. All of you out there.
And I know that someone's going to go, but wait a minute, you'll drop a frame. Yes. In the whole world of video streaming, nothing is perfect. Every system, no matter what it is, will eventually drop a frame. And we will, I think we measured it one time, we dropped one frame every 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
So, and that just is because either the host isn't ready to catch up with it, a buffer isn't clear, whatever it is. But, I won't make an absolute statement, but
right.
we lock it at 60 frames a second. We give you 60 frames a second. And that was what really got people interested, is the fact that here's this little camera.
Which was important for us.
Yes.
We can never sacrifice the frame per second, no matter what the lighting condition
Right.
is. That was the core
For
technology.
our purposes,
Yes,
we
and-
needed data.
Well,
We
right.
didn't care about the picture. We
Which is
needed
exactly
data.
why we ended up making one. Oh, okay.
Right.
I guess jumping.
Yes.
Never
Yeah.
mind. I'm throwing it back when I'm sitting.
No,
Please
so the thing is,
continue.
we have this technology where we put light into a room in a very specific pattern and format. And that system was running at 60 frames a second. So in order to capture that and know where everything was, we had to have a camera that was running exactly synchronized with the illumination source. And so this whole process got us looking for a camera. We couldn't find one. So we said, well, gee, how hard could that be? Let's build one.
Just like it was mentioned, right? The light goes up, the light goes down, and it tries to adjust it. And even if you say, all right, I don't want to make any adjustment, even then, good luck getting to the
Right.
infamous technology standard term, which we hate so
Right.
much, but everybody got used to.
Up to.
Yeah, up to.
Up to. Yeah, the people should never accept up to, but everybody got so comfortable
Hey,
with the
Serge,
up
what's
to.
your internet speed? Upload and
Up to. Yes, everything's up to.
He knows our pain.
$100,000 up to
$100,000,
$100,000, right? It's all up to.
Yes, flipping houses. Yeah.
Right. I can't tell you how many times somebody hits me up and goes, hey, I get 5 upload from my ISP and I can't stream. Why is that? And I said, well, that's because you're not actually getting 5. You're probably getting 3. And you're on a wireless connection. So you're probably getting 1. Yeah, that's I feel like that is our life as of late.
And we run into that when people say, they'll hold up their phone and they go, but I can stream 4K. No, do the math.
Yeah, right.
You have a question. How did you go about finding content creators to try out your prototypes and work with your team to get the production camera you ended up with?
We were luring them in.
treats.
And by the way, I have a bot in chat that collects all of the questions, so don't feel like you have to respond to those right away. Because when we do the Q&A at the end, we'll just rumble through all the questions.
All
Yeah.
right.
But that is an interesting one. So we've been fortunate to find people like yourself, and people who have seen our test pilot video. We're really proud of the people who have done some amazing stuff with our cameras. You've done a lot with them. I want to see what more you can do with them, because you haven't even scratched the surface.
Oh, I know. Because especially when it comes to here, as much as I can set it and forget it, like I just need it to work for this, but definitely been going a little bit more out of the box for the craft room, having an overhead camera and starting to mess around with it out there as well. And that's been a blast.
You saw what Serge was doing earlier before you started the podcast, with the Zoom.
Yep. With the Zoom. Yep.
I mean, that's the beauty of this thing. So we've got a really good following of content creators. And then there's a guy in Southern Australia who does the Aboriginal fire dancing. And he captures it with 2 of our cameras. And that, I just think that is beautiful. So the goal for us is to get cameras in the hands of people who really want to innovate and create in ways that no one imagined possible. I mean, this guy, if you see his original camera rig, it was made with popsicle sticks and rubber bands and hot glue. Right?
Yep.
And he put a beam splitter in there and put 2 of our cameras in there and was capturing, IR in one camera simultaneously with visible light in the other. And then he melded them together in post, and it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's some of the most beautiful stuff I've seen. And this is what we want to see more of. I was asked by a VC one time, he said, well, how do you know, how will you know when you're successful? And I know exactly what he was looking for. He wanted me to say, when we exit for a gazillion times, or, when we get merged or bought out or something, or do an IPO. And my answer to him was, when somebody stops me in the street and says, you'll never guess what I just did with your camera, that to me is going to be success.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, one person that I know could probably have a lot of fun with your cams. Have you ever heard of Sushi Dragon?
No.
Okay, so you guys, your homework for this next week is to check out a streamer called Sushi Dragon. I'm not even going to begin to try and explain or describe his show to you, but he uses 3 computers and 3 different, it's either 3 or 4 different instances of OBS cameras, OBS Studio. He has these armbands where he has wireless numpads, and he does scene switchings. He's got an entire garage that is green screened, and he's insane. Like, he does the most insane things that I have seen with both OBS, cameras, filters, and everything put together. So did you see our special effects reel? Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, I've seen all the reels, man.
Hilarious. We did that one night. It was like, we grabbed my son and we said, okay, we're just going to try this and try this and try this. And we were doing just the most bizarre stuff, with making people disappear and having what we call the predator effect.
Yes. Yep.
Really wild stuff going on. It was fun.
Yeah. So just thinking about like other broadcasters who I know would get a kick out of, because like the only way Sushi Dragon can do the stuff that he does is he just sits there and he just unplugs things and plugs them in, virtually, and just sees what he can come up with. And he is an absolute mastermind at it. So the Sushi Dragon on Twitch, he is, yeah. So somebody just posted a clip for you guys in chat. That'll give you a link to his channel that you guys can check out.
So, I mean, this is what we built this for, is to be the ultimate playground, to unlock what is, if you get a camera today, everything is locked in an ASIC. You can't do anything. I mean, you don't have any control over it. You can't even get to the image. It's already manipulated before you get it. And what we wanted to do was turn that around and open it up and give you access to it, let you play, let you experiment, let you break things, and to the degree we open up the image sensor and let you get all the way down into reprogramming the image sensor itself. So there's 1,000 of these 8-bit registers that control how the image sensor itself works. And we not only give you access to it, we give you the tools to do the read and writes to it, and as much knowledge as we have. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on these image sensors. We have no idea what they do.
Oh yeah, me either.
And they're not going to tell you either, you know? So it's like, okay, well, you could play with it. And some we know that if you touch them, they're right once registers, and we'll warn you, you really don't want to go playing here. But we had this long philosophical discussion, you know, should we prevent people from being able to write to a write once register? And we finally said, no, we'll warn you. And the minute you hit write, it also takes you to a link that allows you to buy a new camera.
Just in case. I like that.
But, you know, there's so much you can do all the way down at the image sensor level, and then coming all the way back up the pipeline. And we have some really exciting stuff we're working on. So it's now that we have a stable final piece of not final, but a stable piece of hardware. Nothing's ever final.
Right.
Now we're into the, you know, it's funny because I remember sitting in a conference room one time, pounding my fist on the table saying, we will never build a camera. We build a camera. Bonda reminded me the other day that I said, we will never be a software company where we only build hardware. Now we're writing software for the camera. So I give up. You know, it's whatever I say, well, I'll never do, I will do.
Right. Now, what was your headspace at that time when you said, I will not build a camera? Was your thought process going in a completely different direction? Like, was another product in mind at that time? Where was the mental fork in the road for that?
We were focused on the 3D imaging, the high-speed 3D imaging, and we sort of developed a technology that did some really amazing stuff. We were able to capture not only what's called a point cloud, which is a 3-dimensional image, but we were also at the same time able to capture color. So every point had its RGB value, but it also had an X, Y, and Z value. And this is what we were really focusing on. We said, this is really where we want to put our attention, because this is something amazing that we've developed. And the camera was just something we needed to make that happen. And I didn't want to move in that direction.
This is a demonstration of some of the special effects that we created.
There's Serge.
Yeah, is that like one of the first videos that you guys did?
Oh, no, this was one that we did not too long ago. This part of the special effects reel.
Okay.
And then what we found is that people looked at our 3D technology, and while it was great, this was about the time when Kinect first came out.
For
the whole
Xbox?
Yeah. That whole 3D gaming technology was going to be the big thing, right? But what we found is that people were more interested in the camera than they were in the 3D technology. And we got 800 emails from people around the world going, where can I get the camera? And so what I would do is I would respond to every one of them. And I would say, what is it about this? What problem are you trying to solve? And what is it about it, what we do, that solves that for you? And that began developing it. And at one point in time, we said, you know, this is a faster track to market. We've already built the camera, so we thought, you know, and people want the camera. So let's build the camera, and we'll come back to the 3D technology in a couple of months, right? That was several years ago.
Right, yeah, I was about to say, a couple of months, huh?
Oh,
that's some forward thinking for you.
Yeah, no, it's like, this has been.
We never thought it's gonna be full time. Well, not full 140% full time job. We thought it's gonna be just a side effect of what we do in 3D technology, just a little bit of a cash flow, just a little bit. You know, here camera here, camera now and then. You know, nothing really big. Just a couple of units out.
Do you have that Igor in 3D?
I have everything.
That's what we pay you for.
So
I'll find it.
You know, it was the year that Amazon bought Twitch, and, you know, for just shy of $1 billion. And then Vaughn contacted us and said, hey, you guys ought to build a camera for Twitch. And then Omnivision, who we get our image sensors from, came to us and said, hey, we have this new 4K 1080p sensor. You guys want to play with that? And we said, sort of put everything together and said, this is the direction we want to go. you know, with 800 unsolicited people hunting you down saying, I want what you build, it drove us in that direction. So that's when we actually split the company. The original the core tech company is called 2R1Y. And then you have Sub2r makes the camera. And we actually split them into separate companies
Okay.
At that point in time.
You guys aren't still planning on rethinking about the name, right? Sub2r's got a ring to it now.
You know, everybody says, change the name. And it's like, fine, what do you want to change the name to? You know, and nobody can come up with a good one. So it's like, hey, you know what? It sticks.
Right. After a certain amount of time, right.
Yeah, you know, and it's like, you know, so there's a guy in Italy who the word two is dua. So you end up with Sub2r. That's how he pronounces. I like that.
Oh my God.
So this is a one of the images we captured with our original technology, and it's that piece that you just saw there was 1 millimeter accuracy.
That is insane. That looks very creepy. This is like some Minority Report stuff.
Oh yeah, this was some really amazing technology, and the fact that it could capture the point cloud and color simultaneously is what really was the differentiator of what we were pulling together. And then we got some videos of it running someplace. There you go. Okay. So.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite videos, was just showing off this stuff.
Yeah, this is just insanely beautiful stuff. I mean, it's so breathtaking what he does with this.
Sucks to be you, audio podcast listeners.
So this is Igor in 3D. Live. Yeah.
You know who you look like in that last frame? You look like one of the werewolves from True Blood. I don't know what his name is. He was also a super buff, sexy pole dancer. I can't. Is it neat? Magic Mike?
Yeah.
Compliment.
That was back before his hair was gray.
And that's with Piggy.
That was Piggy, yeah.
And that was Piggy. That wasn't even the Sub2r. Okay.
No, that was the original one. So that was hilarious. So we've come a long way. We've learned a lot of things. We continue to learn things that, you know, the amount that we didn't know when we started this. Serge likes to say that our ignorance was our greatest strength, because we just didn't know all of the aspects behind video, and we're learning more, which I think now is a fun part, because we just keep learning more and more about what we can do with the image as we move forward.
Oh, absolutely. And with both my last job and the job that I have now, I've just been kind of thrown into the mix, and it forces you to learn, or else you're never going to progress. And it's a motivator. It's also sort of kind of a detriment, but at the same time, it's extremely, extremely beneficial in the end. And it really makes for an insane amount of knowledge incoming. Yeah. And go ahead.
And learning is it's fun. I mean, we're at a point now where we're learning how to do things better in a more amazing way, as opposed to just, how do I survive?
Right.
How do I get past this disaster? How do I get past this thing blowing up? How do I get past plugging it in and everything went black? You know, I mean, that was always a challenge. And now it's at a point where it's like, how can I make this cool? What can I do with this is really that takes what we've done, builds on it, and brings it to the next level. And that's what, to me, is exciting.
Right. One thing that I actually wanted to bring up, because you actually taught me something new before we got started. I asked how the Sub2r team was doing the multi-camera setup right now. And I'm like, I have no idea how they're doing this. So do you want to take a second to explain? Even though I am an OBS whore, I'm all about features. And so please explain how you guys are doing what you're doing with, you know, the cameras and stuff.
I'm going to let Serge do that.
Do what?
Multi-camera.
Oh, you weren't paying attention. Who wasn't paying attention in class? Right?
What just happened?
Mr. Yefanov, would you like to share with the class?
How did I end up on this? So, well, you actually have the little pinky one that you can use
Yeah.
to show what we've got, right? These are the two cams that are, well, one of them is, you can get it, do I have a focus? Oh, wait a second.
Did you turn autofocus on?
Wait a second, not my fault.
Oh yeah, you're in charge of all this.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So these are the, and we didn't talk about interchangeable lenses yet, but you can see it, right, as we speak. One of them has a M12, and another one is the C lens. So, for example,
that's a C lens on the left, and then there's an f1.8.
I will be the remote video.
Oh, you can be a remote video? Oh,
Yes.
cool.
Okay.
Then people don't have to look at my armpit.
don't just don't go against the light. Other than that, you're good. Do it from the other side because you can see that.
Look at the workshop. Yeah.
There you go.
So this is the lab.
Yes.
Um,
And
And there is one more, which is
over there.
Right.
Way back there.
I'll have
You do it.
So it's
What's up, good looking?
Oh yeah. Now
that is a lens.
is a lens.
That is insane. Can you show the feed that is coming from that camera? Because I want to show everybody how far back that camera is. So you saw how far back it was. And then, yeah, switch to that.
It's pretty far. It's across the room. So this is the feed from this beauty. And well, let's get it all the way back first, right?
So that's one of the fun things we did is as we move forward, we went from a camera board mounted lens holder, which just handled the M12 lens, and then we started playing with bigger and bigger lenses. And no, you don't want to do that. You really don't want to do that. So then we got this board mounted C lens holder. And what we found, I think that was what you adapted onto your camera. What we found
Yes.
is that when you put a big lens like this on there, we were actually twisting the camera board. And there's probably 100 little ball connections on the back of that image sensor. So if you begin to twist the board, you can pop the connections off the printed circuit board.
Right.
But then we went to this new design. I happen to have an example here.
Oh, look at.
If I can take it apart. Yeah, there we go. So this was one of our latest designs. And what we did here, whoops, I'll put it back here, is we made the lens holder, whoops, gotta get the right orientation. We made the lens holder part of the front plate. So this is a standard C-mount lens holder. And then when this bolts on the front of the camera, the whole body of the camera becomes a support for the lens.
God, I was always wondering how the hell the camera was supporting the weight of those lenses.
Yeah, so now you can hang a massive 35 millimeter lens off the front of the camera, and you're not putting any force on the image sensor or any of the electronics.
Got it. Okay.
All supported by this really strong box structure. And you've seen the picture of my truck parked on top of the camera.
Yep.
So the housing is very stiff, very strong. No, this isn't something battery powered. This is one of our favorite lenses to bolt on the front of the camera.
Oh my God.
Put the camera in perspective.
It's an old Canon 7210 zoom.
Well, you can.
So it's
And he actually screws the camera into the lens.
Oh my God. So basically the lens is supporting the camera at this point.
Right.
Yeah, you can hold over the body so that you can see nothing.
James Bond.
Like that.
Wow.
That's what you can use in your lab. You were looking for something that can zoom.
Yeah.
use
For
this.
head, it's gonna be like a microscope.
So, can you explain a little bit how you are feeding 4 different cameras into a feed that is now going to my Zoom video conferencing? Because this is the part that I actually had no idea existed. And so I want you to explain that so this can give some people some ideas.
So there are several broadcasting tools. Of course, OBS is the most known one.
Yeah, and the best.
To use, good one, as you call yourself. How did you call yourself? OBS whore?
Yeah.
I used to be, but I found a better. How do you call those guys? Pimp. That's right. Got a better pimp. So I'm using XSplit. It's a paid form, but it's not that much. I'm not gonna give any advertisement. I'm just explain of what it is. So the perk about that particular one is, for me, and the way we do this broadcast, is that it can be used as a virtual camera, so that I can use it for anything that is looking for a camera. But the benefit is now I can use different scenes. It's just like a broadcasting tool. So I'm not limited to keep switching. For example, if I to do the same thing with the different cameras, but just using, let's say, Zoom, I would have to physically tell Zoom, okay, take this camera as my feed, take another one, which is, nobody wants to do that. That's
right.
Too much of a hassle. With the XSplit, I just use it as the virtual camera and do all my broadcasting.
So do your scenes.
So since OBS is an open platform, if somebody were to give OBS the ability to be a virtual camera, you could do this on OBS.
And that OBS gods.
It's like Face Rig.
Right.
Is a virtual camera.
Right.
And that functionality is great. I love Face Rig. We were playing with it, early on with our infrared technology. It was a blast to play with that. And we were running at 120 frames a second. And Face Rig got amazingly smooth when you run that fast.
Oh my God, I can imagine.
So
yeah, so I had no idea that existed. I can't think of a time when I would need to use it, but now that I know in the back of my head that is available, I'm trying to think of ways that I could possibly incorporate this into something. But yeah, I had no idea that existed.
Well, and there should be a way for OBS to be recognized as a virtual camera. I mean, other applications do it. How do you do it? I don't know.
This was necessarily
yeah.
for these kind of scenes, because what we actually, not even this one, I'll show you the scene that, by the way, what you're looking at, right? This was our demo reel, but it's not post, it's all live. That's the complicated part, that you can't really use it with any other technologies unless you use some of our cams, at least 2 of those, to get the live performance of all of this tweaks and tricks.
How the hell did you do that?
Now, is that cool or what?
That actually blew me away a little bit. You guys are gonna have to help me get it so I can make Bozo's face move.
Do the burning guy. Yes.
All right. So this is the color substitution that, again, you can do it live.
So
all of that
is live.
All the stuff you can do in post and do, honestly, a lot better in post. But doing it live is where the challenge comes in. How do you do all of this?
This is the part that you need OBS and XSplit and 2 cameras.
Okay.
A single computer. Everything is done on the one computer. So what's done there is, I am with the mini me version of a ghosty looking Richard.
So I'm actually on the right hand side.
He's on the right side, substituted completely, as you can see.
Well, he's walking around.
Yeah.
You can see him on the floor.
So we call that the predator effect, right? Because actually what I'm being substituted with is the room behind me.
Got it. Okay.
So we take me out and put the room in behind me.
The predator effect, let me show you this one. Yeah, there we go. This is a predator effect right there.
Yeah, and just barely see the outline.
Yeah.
And we actually deliberately did it so that you can.
Okay. You guys are setting up a Sushi Dragon stream right now. Like, the things that are happening in these scenes are kind of almost exactly the stuff that he kind of gets into.
And it was fun to play with this stuff. And we just did it one night, sitting and set up the room, and we said, okay, so how many crazy ass things can we do in one night?
I got an idea. You guys know that movie Alien vs Predator?
Exactly. So that was it. It's like, then my son shows up and we sort of grab him and get him involved in the whole thing. So it was funny.
Are those two that were like duct taped together right back there? Was that two stacked on
Yes.
top of each other? Okay.
Actually, that's the whole. Yeah, that's the setup.
Oh, hey, is that a onesie?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
right there.
These are the two cams that were kind of
Duct
duct
tape
taped
together.
together. Yeah.
Well,
then-
rubber banded.
Yeah. And then we put a wedge in between so they capture the same
Angle.
scene at the same angle at the distance we wanted.
Got it. Okay. And hey, they must have been running pretty cool back then.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's as long as you get airflow around them and you're doing a single stream, you can do that. There you go.
Green man.
It's like how many green screens can you get from Amazon in one day? Oh,
Right.
they're not the same color green.
Yeah. Thank God for 4-color substitution.
Exactly.
And that's right. So just to quickly show, right, that's the benefit of it. You don't really have to work your way out with all the light and matching colors. You can actually get from messy to a pure green. And of course, for any color substitution algorithms running on the broadcasting tools, that's the best thing because they just need to look for one color, 255 of green. That's it. One pure green. Easy job for them.
Okay.
How did I make it into the movie?
Uh-oh, someone's in trouble. Whoops.
We're in trouble.
So talk a little bit about the biggest road, I guess I want to say road bumps or road blocks. Like what are some of the biggest transgressions that you guys have had to overcome since starting this whole venture?
You mean besides the mic drop we experienced?
Well, the mic drop was probably the worst. Probably both emotionally and
Every
just
which way.
every which way. Yeah. So back in June of last year, we had this engineer working with us since the beginning, 3-4 years. And he was the hardware engineer, he was the software engineer for the firmware, and everything sort of resided with him. And we'd say, you got to put stuff in Dropbox. Oh, it's, or GitHub. And it's like, well, it's not cleaned up. I either fix this problem or I put things in GitHub for you. What do you want? And we were always in a panic mode. And we always said, hey, we'll have time to clean the files up later. And it was June 4th. We had just sent what we thought was our production design out. And
so the reason we don't push is because it's a very tiny, small startup.
yeah,
We barely found an engineer, and you don't want to piss off an engineer.
Right.
You always have to dance around the prima donnas, all engineers out there, not to piss them off, because literally everything is hinging on the cumulative knowledge that they've gained right through the R&D. And it's incredibly difficult to quickly substitute somebody. So of course you want to play it nice.
Yeah.
Really trying to find the middle ground before pushing too hard versus accommodating for your needs. So it always gets to the point where you really, really, really want it, but you've got so far down the road with enabling certain behaviors that you ran yourself into a trap.
and so
To make a long story short,
he had some life issues, and as any startup, the more we learned, the more we wanted, the
Right.
more we demanded of everything. We didn't know we could do color substitution. Then we did 1-band color substitution. Then we wanted 4-band color substitution.
64.
And now Serge wants 64.
I was.
And then he wants 60, and then he wants 8 of those different things, So long story short, he basically said, I'm out of here without notice. And he had really actually exited long before then. And when we got what we thought was our production boards back, plugged them in, and the first one blew up.
Not even exaggerating.
No,
Pieces, smoke pieces, everything.
yeah, I wish I had them. They must be upstairs someplace. But
Oh man.
they had a tantalum capacitor wired backwards, and they blew up. And then I thought maybe it was just that board, and did another one, and it blew up. And anybody who knows anything about electronics knows tant caps, especially power caps. That's kind of the joke. With electronics students is you wire one backwards when the guy isn't looking, and he powers it up, and it's like a cherry bomb.
Right.
I mean, they go off spectacularly. And this is a founder funded company where we have it all came from our, as I like to say, selling body parts on Craigslist. I mean, this is our passion. This is us. And to see it blow up like that, and to realize that the person who was at the heart and soul of this decided that they, without notice, were going to walk out on you. That's devastating. I was ready to give up. Honestly, I was just completely distraught. And
yeah, this was probably one of the toughest time to overcome, because you're so close and yet so far. But before even that point, get away from this whole, experience, we were marching towards a goal that would cross the path that no one had a clue about any difficulty. Literally every step we take, we have to learn where we are on the map, because the only companies who walk the walk, Logitech, Microsoft,
Sony,
Blackmagic,
Point Grey,
all of
etc.
these names, right? And that's it. Anybody, and this is what we've learned from talking to even those giant representatives. We have a couple of buddies here and there. They were always amazed and surprised. You guys that far?
Yeah.
Oh, you actually went this far already? Because army of startups engineers failed long before they would even come, maybe halfway of where we were even a year or 2 years ago. We didn't know any better.
To quote Serge again, our ignorance was our biggest strength, because we would come up against the problem and we didn't know that others failed to overcome
It's so tough.
Right.
Put in perspective, the last time the company that made a camera was GoPro.
Wow, really? Wow.
Building a camera from scratch, not putting a camera module that you buy into something.
Right.
I mean, you look at like one of those video doorbells, right? They don't build a camera. They buy a camera module.
Yep.
That already has all the functionality tied into it, and they plug that into something else.
Yep.
So that's the time between GoPro and Sub2r.
Yeah.
Void. Nothing is in the middle.
And there are people that have tried that have given up, because it's a really difficult challenge to make it through there. And part of what I was ready to give up, and it was Igor. It was my co-founders that said, no, look, we got to do this. It was also the community rose up and said, no, you keep going. You'll get through this. You'll make it. And we managed to find a new coder. We managed to find some guys who would help us with the hardware design. Intel stepped up. They came out and they said, hey, we'll redesign your entire power management system on your board.
That's crazy to me. When you guys were first talking about that, I was like, wait, what the hell? What? That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, it was like this whole positive, input that came in, so you have to pick yourself up, dust yourself off from one of the worst disasters and go forward. And as I was telling you before we went on air, getting these boards back on Friday, plugging them in,
and nothing blew up.
Yeah, right. Thank God.
We were going as fast as we could. You power them up, you load the software on the thing, and you slam the HDMI module in the back. Boom, it works. Next, boom, works.
Which it was one of the big perk, right? Talking about loading software as a firmware.
Yeah.
Like closed architecture and all that stuff on most every product you're familiar with. Every time we come up with something new and cool, all you need to do is, let me upgrade my firmware. In a second, you've got another package that you can play with.
And I'll tell you what, like I spend 4 hours building a keyboard, and if I plug that thing in and it don't work, I'm ready to quit then. So I can't even imagine putting hundreds, possibly thousands of hours into something and be like, holy shit, we've got a final product. Clink, boom. I would be so fast the fuck out of there. You have no idea. So
the funny thing is, we were sitting here, three of us, doing this, and Richard looked up and said, you guys, you realize it, we did it. And we were so focused on just loading them that we didn't even stop to think that, yeah, this is it. We actually did do it. This is the production camera. And
Right.
It runs. And it
Yeah, it works. And I mean, you can see, this is I'm staring at myself in this monitor from my face, and it's like, damn, a little too much gray. A little too much gray.
Can
Wasn't
we-
as much as when we started.
can we add gray to the color substitution, please?
Just for men.
Right. Okay, so I just want to I want to touch on one point and also kind of highlight the timeline. So when that board blew up in your guys' face, both figuratively and literally, when was that? Like date wise?
June 4th of last year.
June 4th is when he quit.
Oh,
Yeah,
it blew up.
So it was a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, it was about 2 weeks after that it blew up. So June of last year.
Let's say July 4th. Why not? An Independence Day. Why not?
Dude,
A
yeah.
big firework.
Yeah.
So wait, we had already been talking while he was still employed and then he left.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's when we had to scramble and redo a whole lot of stuff that we believed was already done.
We essentially redesigned the board and all the firmware from scratch from that day.
Okay.
Just building upon what we had learned and what we knew.
That's insane.
I mean, Vonda, who's never seen a schematic in her life, took, and this is a 14-layer printed circuit board, right, for the motherboard. It's 20 some odd pages of full size.
19.
19 pages.
Yes.
She laid them all out. We had them blown up at the local copy store, right? And she did the
I
net
did
list.
Inis and Audis.
This piece references, FX3 3+1 volt to this page over here. Yes, it matches. And there's thousands and thousands of these connections.
So I'm going back in my email and because I wanted to see when it was that we first started talking. And it was April 26th of 2018 is when we first started. So we are coming up on almost a year.
Yeah.
And
that year has been spent recovering from, we were supposed to be where we are now is where we thought we were in June of last year.
Okay. Oh, geez. So also in this email, I have a picture of I believe this is Piggy. So I'm going to put this in chat and you guys can take a look and chat can take a look as well. It looks like there's some bamboo, some bolts, some wing nuts.
That's
Fallen.
That was the first camera rig that was used to capture fire dancing using two Piggies, not even using two of the Sub2r cameras, but two of the original Piggies.
Okay.
Yeah. So we actually have 4 of our cameras in Southern Australia right now.
Okay. Wow. All the way across the world. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, and that to me is so rewarding because that's what we want people to do with this thing.
Right.
We want to make a good streaming camera, but people who want something that you just sit there, plug it in and don't touch, it's okay for that. But really where the magic comes in is if you want to get your fingernails dirty.
Right.
You want to dive into it and play with it and experiment and have fun.
Point. That's actually a very good point. Not that we call it the holy grail of automation. It's a long road to walk. Not sure we're gonna talk about it at all. Maybe we will.
What?
Oh, Igor's dream.
Yeah. So, but essentially, right. Even though
Sure.
automation for now for us is afterthought, just because everybody got so used to it has to do something for me. We do have the automation algorithms in place, but it's not we never gonna, well, we will match, but at this point again, we're never gonna match the multi-story buildings of the big corporation working on those algorithms. It's just not feasible, and we completely understand it. Our approach instead is to give all and every tools that otherwise is hidden from the user on all of the devices, that so you can get your hands dirty, and if you really want to keep tweaking, by all means, these are the, as we say, everything we put into automation, we also provide it as the UI back to the user. You want to do all the tweaks, by all means. Anything that we do with automation, you can actually do it and set that automation yourself as well.
And if
So-
you go, yeah, if you go to our wiki, we put all of our algorithms out there. We put all of the lens designs out there. We put all of the UI interfaces out there. Igor is always publishing the UI. You know, you can write your own UI for the camera if you want, because all of that information, how we read and write all the registers, the control of the camera, is all there. Because we know that the only way that we're going to foster innovation is if we make that information available. So we took the exact opposite road that everybody else does. It's like, bolt it up, don't let anybody see it. We're like, hey, no, here's
Touch it.
everything you can do. Yeah.
That was one of the first things that I really appreciated, was how you guys had the regular mode and then the advanced or the playground mode. And
Yeah.
I remember when I saw how many extra tabs were added to the UI of stuff that I could play around with, I went, oh shit, nope, go back to easy mode. Because that was within, I don't know, probably the first week that I had it. I'm like, I'm going to set this thing on fire if I start going haywire. So we went back.
You have no idea what Serge and Igor and Artak are working on. And if they pull it off, it's going to be absolutely mind-blowing.
That's not an if, it's a win.
It's a win.
It's a matter of
Yep.
when. But also, to talk about the previous point, what was the point?
Automation.
So
like
while you're
that.
doing it,
It was-
oh, that's not going to focus, is it? Wait, I can do it on this camera. Can you get me this camera?
yeah.
So this is our motherboard. Whoops, I can't point it in that direction. How come it's not focusing, Serge? There it
It's not
goes.
auto. Remember, autofocus.
So this is the top of our motherboard. And if you can read it, it says, if you have come this far, explore, innovate, and create.
Love it. And I see the Sub2r logo over there to the left as well.
Yeah. And so the whole idea is you can see all the ways that you can connect in with this board, all the power takeoff connections and everything else that's built onto this so that you can play.
Is that a radiation symbol in the middle there?
No, actually it's, so there are some Easter eggs on here. We're going to get some more on here as time goes on.
Hell yeah.
I remember the point. The point.
Okay.
The point. So the point was, what the hell was the point?
Oh, you were going to talk about Igor's.
Oh, no, I remember now. So,
Now you can see why it took so long to get this far.
Right.
So Naaackers, you just mentioned, right, you open up tabs and then like, no, I'm going to go back to the basics. So the thing is that it is very intimidating at first because it's not something that general population is used to. Managing colors. Audio these days is somewhat, there is a general knowledge, there's a bass, trembles, mids, right? I know what to do. When it comes to color, which is the same concept, but it has never been exposed to the end user ever.
Absolutely.
Will you ever have white balance? Well, check because it's auto. Exposure, well, there's a check because it's everything's like just make those checkpoints, or at best, you have 8 sets for white balance, right? Outside, inside, and all that stuff. That's all you get. That's all you ever got. So we are now exposing all of these layers and layers of options that is otherwise hidden from the user. And yes, at first, it looks overwhelming, at first. But as always, the more you work with the unit, you always think about, I wish I had that. I wish I had one more knob somewhere. Because that's the one that I truly want. It's like with any devices. When you open manual, oh my God, all these buttons, all these tweaks, all that, it's just too much. Until you spend some quality time with it, and that's when they start having your wish list. I want this, I want that. That's exactly the mindset we have. We hide nothing. Yes, it's gonna be a little bit overwhelming, which is I will have to spend my sweet time doing some tutorials.
No, that's what Naaackers is going to do.
Yeah,
for us,
hit
right?
me up, man. I love tutorials.
I have to say, Naaackers, there was nothing for me to do. I wish, there will be more like yourself, because I don't know how, but you seem to figure out ways of what's your light. You have a knowledge of the light, which is, believe me, how many times people just put in 10 soft boxes blessed in their face and trying and asking, so what happened? Well, what in the goddamn just happened? Why nothing's going on? Or no light whatsoever.
Oh, that's the dungeon.
Where is my picture? Considering you actually running 60 FPS per second, you can't really compare to otherwise, let's say, webcams out there that will slow down its FPS to 1.5 or something.
Right.
And then the picture. There's certain things, there's certain knowledge base and education that, yes, we recognize and understand we have to provide. So over time, we will be issuing more and more tutorials because
Serge will
at first,
Serge will be.
What's this we, Serge?
I mean, even the simple point of, if you want to go from a 30 FPS cam to a 60 FPS cam, get ready to have your room twice as illuminated, because you need twice as much light. And that's something that people probably don't think of right away, is as soon as you flip that 60 FPS switch, you have to be well illuminated to get a decent picture.
Or you need a lens with a lower f-stop.
Yep.
Or you need a wider lens. I mean, so you have to take in physics. You know, it's how do I get more photons into the pixel? And the way to think of a pixel is like the solar cell on your house, you know, on the roof. And it produces a certain amount of electrical energy. Only these things are, you know, a micron across.
Right.
So what you have to do is you think, I'm going to create a certain amount of electric charge out of each one of these pixels. And it takes a certain amount of photons hitting them. And that's the governing thing of physics there. You know, you either need to add more photons into the room or collect more photons.
Yep.
There's always a trade-off in what you do.
Translation, just turn on the goddamn light bulb. Get the light there.
So that, I mean, and that is actually one of the main reasons why I've stuck with the 4mm 1.8. It's because, one, I thoroughly enjoy the slightly distorted fisheye look. A lot of my personality is shown behind me, you know, worn on my sleeve.
A lot of your personality was distorted.
Right. It's pretty distorted. It's pretty fucked up. But and that was something that was important to me, was to show not only myself, but the place that I reside when I am doing the things that I love. And having, I mean, how many lenses have I gone through now? Probably 4 or 5 different lenses. Just like, use this one for a while, throw in another one. Try it again, use another one. And go ahead.
And you just landed on one point that we wanted to make very apparent, is that unlike other cameras, you can add and play with lenses. And we did it with either the M12 or the C-mount lens because they're affordable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can go play with lenses all day long. And some of the lenses you can get off of Amazon or eBay that you can play with on this camera are, you know, $20 a piece. Okay, so you're not dropping hundreds of dollars for a lens.
Right, right.
You know, and what we're hoping is, as time goes on, that our users will, you know, add to the wiki and say, look, I use this lens and here's the result I got. And I use this lens and this is what I got, you know. So we can't test every lens. It would be impossible, but we have fun with, you know, with what we do. And the idea is that, you know, hey, people can go out and try these different lenses and have a blast with them.
Serge went on an insane shopping spree. He was staying up nights looking at auctions on eBay.
The best ones he found were these old 16mm movie camera lenses made by a company called Elgeet.
That's right.
Elgeet.
Yep.
They are absolutely beautiful. And the optics in them are insane, but they're back from the 30s and 40s.
Were those like the giant, all metal housing, the ones that you showed me? Okay.
The brushed aluminum housings, oh, they're gorgeous.
Are they in here?
Have you guys tried any like 360 cam setups yet?
Haven't, but
okay.
One of the things that we've done with this camera, and it was part of our original technology, was you can synchronize multiple cameras. So in the back of the camera is a plug that allows you to get to the sync signal that goes into the camera. So you can tie 100 cameras together with a, oh, he actually had it here.
Yeah.
Oh God, this is so beautiful. You can tie a bunch of cameras together with a gen lock, a single clock, or you can use one camera as the master and slave the rest off of that. You can put 100 cameras together.
Okay.
So they're all taking the same frame at the exact same time. So when you're doing a 360-degree image or you're doing 3D, you're not looking at a temporal distortion as well as a spatial distortion. You're only looking at the spatial distortion. What is my change in reference, but not my change in time? And it makes it much easier to stitch the images together.
Okay.
Especially if you're trying to capture something that moves. So all these things come together. And again, that's something we will give you. Here's how to get to the sync signal. Here's what that signal needs to look like. Here's how you can generate one. Here's how you can use one camera as the master and the rest as the slaves, if that's what you want to do. You know, we want to see you go out and play with stuff like that. And eventually it would be great if we could make the little modules for people to play with, but that comes with time, you know, and we got to sell the cameras first.
Right. Yeah, right.
Show them the lens.
And I'll tell you, oh, there it is. Yep.
Yeah. These are so beautiful. This thing weighs probably 5 pounds.
That is awesome.
It's solid glass, and it just attaches right to the front of the camera. It's just, and the quality of the image is beautiful.
And is that the C mount?
That's a C mount.
Okay.
Yeah, it was originally designed for 16mm movie cameras. And it just looks beautiful when it's on the camera too. That's the other thing that's nice is that
Now that is a James Bond camera.
yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, how do you want to shoot with it?
Right.
You know? And again, it's what do you want to do? You know, we don't want, what we found with the off-the-shelf type web cameras is that you don't have the ability to play with them. And when you move up to the expensive ones, the DSLRs and the scientific and the more professional grade cameras, not that we're not professional grade, but that the lenses themselves were extremely expensive. And so if you wanted to go play, you were dumping hundreds or $1,000 into a lens.
Oh yeah.
And you know, what if it doesn't work? You know, eBay.
Right. Yeah. Try and make some of your money back.
Yeah. And the whole idea behind this is go play.
Right.
And eventually we're going to have a community that says, oh my God, if you want this effect, this is the lens you want to go buy, and you get them on eBay for $19.
Right.
I mean, this Canon was $19 on eBay.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yo, Serge, I'm gonna need a link. I'm gonna need a link to that model number, please, because I got playing around to do.
I mean, it's insane. So, I mean, I don't know how many hours we've spent. We bolted these things on telescopes.
That was going to be my next question, is if you guys had done any telescope picture taking or recording.
Serge, can you find the moon and the sun thing?
Please do. I would love to see it. I got a friend of mine who is obsessed with telescopes. Space Coder, I'm calling you out, man.
Yes.
Oh, and this thing, when you put it in 4K mode, the resolution is insanely beautiful. But we were surprised here in San Francisco. It's impossible because even on a clear night, there's so much atmosphere.
Right.
And things move a lot faster than you realize.
They just, the amount of atmospheric motion is, you know, really a lot of distortion. And then you wind up with we have an old Unitron 90mm telescope from the 50s. I mean, in the 50s, it was a beautiful telescope. It's a blast. It comes in this old wooden box and everything. So we get it up on the deck and we're taking a nice clear night and taking a picture of the moon. We never realized how fast the moon moves.
Right. If you're looking at it, if you're trying to get that close to it.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing that was, you know, just mind blowing, is this thing just hauled. And it is so, you know, there's no motor drive on this telescope.
Oh, it was all manual?
Yeah, and so it was just us turning the knobs as fast as we could to keep up.
Go up, go down. I can see. Why can't you see it?
You know, and here's this, you know, of course, you know, any night in San Francisco that it's that clear is freezing cold to us.
Right.
So we're out there, freezing to death, trying to take a picture of the moon.
Wait, freezing to death at what? 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 65?
Yeah. Well,
Christ. One thing I wanted to ask about, and I know that I've asked about this off, via email and stuff. As far as autofocus goes, is that something that you guys is that kind of like more of like a playground feature? Or is it something that it depends on the lens that you have connected?
Funny you should ask. So let's see if I can get back focused so you can see it. There you go. So right here is a row of pins.
Okay.
There's 20 pins on the back. This is the camera board. There's 20 pins on the back of the camera board. Those are user configurable IO pins. So whatever it is you want to do with the camera board, we want to give you options to play with.
Okay.
So at Photonics West, which is a big trade show here in San Francisco back in February, I was talking to a company that makes liquid lenses. They use a magnetic field to distort a liquid and change its optical properties. So you can put an autofocus on this thing. You can put a manual focus on there that, basically allows you to move a UI slider and change the focus of the lens.
Wow. Okay.
We were talking to them. Their development kit was way out of our budget, but it is something that we planned for and want to implement when we can. And one of the cool things I always forget about is the fact that the LED on the front of the camera is programmable. Yeah,
because I changed that thing. That was one of the first things I did was change the color of that thing.
Yeah, and so you can Igor's got a program that allows you to tell whether you're in focus, and then that feeds back to the color of the LED. So if you're a streamer and you lean in or you lean out, it's going to tell you, hey, you're moving out of focus,
right?
Because you're getting too close or too far away. So we don't like autofocus because it's always bouncing.
Right.
It's always a pain in the ass. But we also know that reaching up and trying to focus the lens is a pain in the ass as well. So eventually going to one of these, like a liquid lens that sits on top of the image sensor and then allows you to focus, would be perfect. And we plan to do that as we move forward, but it's not in the immediate future.
Right.
But we built in the ability to do it. So, part of what we've had to do is sit around going, well, what do we want to do? I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's plan for it anyway, right?
Right. Yeah. In this room, I sit where I know that I'm going to be sitting when I'm playing games. I focus it, and then I don't touch it for a couple months. As you've seen in like the craft room, there's a little bit more adjusting because the height of what I'm doing is constantly changing.
Right.
But again, all it is, change the scene in OBS, crank it till it's focused, move on to the next thing. And at first it felt cumbersome to me, and then I just got so used to just reaching up, twisting it, and being good. And then that was that.
So you'll even like this. So the partner we have that makes the little adapter that goes on between the C and the M12, there was some wobble in that.
I've got a wobble one on the prototype.
Yeah. And so we didn't like it. And we went back to them and said, you got to get rid of that, because you go to touch it and you got to focus and you take your fingers off of it and the lens drops.
Yep.
Just a fraction, but it's enough to screw things up. They must have recut those threads 30 or 40 times in the machine till they finally got the exact right pitch.
Wow.
And then they've made it so that it extends further back, so there's more thread to hang it on.
Oh, okay.
And then we did one more thing, which was really exciting, is that the adapter was originally aluminum, but as you turn it, if you have the mics on, it sounds like you're grinding gravel in a tin can.
Oh, God.
No way to get rid of that metal on metal sound, right?
Right.
So the new C to M12 adapters that we're getting at the end of next week are made from Delrin.
No
It's
shit.
nylon type of material.
Okay.
And they're really tight and they're really smooth, no sound.
Send me an invoice. I'll take 2 of those. I would love to have one of those because I was actually going to hit you up a couple weeks ago. I'm like, hey, by the way, the adapter that I have for the prototype camera, it's got a little bit of wobble to it. And I knew that you guys knew that. But I didn't know if you guys had found a solution, and it sounds like you have. So that's awesome.
So that's part of what has allowed us to get to this point, being a small 4-person company, is the partnerships that we build. And this company PSC that does the housings for us, they put hundreds of hours into the housing design, into the front plates and back plates, into the customized, yeah.
Customize.
Bling.
It's all.
Do we want to talk about USB?
Talk about USB?
Yep.
Oh, we could talk about USB, but let me finish up with the partners. So anyway, it's the partners that have helped us to be this successful. So it's Avatar that makes our lenses. It's PSC that does the housings. It's OmniVision that has helped us understand the image sensor. Intel has stepped up to help us with power management. Cypress has been there. And when you're a small company like us and you knock on the door of these giant megacorps, most of them could care less about you. You know, it's like, if you're not going to buy 100,000 pieces a day, just go screw yourself.
Right.
I'll talk to you. And the fact that these companies have spent hours and hours and hours putting up with us being really obnoxious.
Gotta be to make strides.
Yeah, I mean, they believe in us, and it's like, so we try and get them to share in our success as much as we can. And it was really rewarding back in, what was it, the December of last year? Intel came back to us, and there was a group inside of Intel that said, would you make a video for us about what our power management chips did for your camera? And we said, sure. You could, you helped us out. It's the least we could do. We got Duncan Kneedeep to do the voiceover narration, so it sounded official with that British voice of his.
Yep.
And it went viral inside of Intel, and that was fun for us to be able to do something like that. So, we try and share when we can our successes with the people who've helped us get there. So it's not just us standing on a box going, we did this all ourselves.
And
there's a lot of
and
people
speaking
here.
of knocking on doors, in the same way that you're knocking on doors, I felt just as small coming to you guys. I can't remember how I first came across Sub2r. I know that it was me in search of something other than a Logitech C920 for a camera, and somebody else will probably be able to listen to this in the future and say, hey, Naaackers, it was actually me that hooked you up with Sub2r. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, it was.
Probably either Nathan or Vaughn, one of the two.
Right. I'm gonna have to retrace my steps and figure out where that connection came in. But I remember seeing on Twitter that you guys were looking for people to test cameras, and I'm like, they're never gonna send a camera to me. Are you kidding me? This small-time streamer just trying to get some hardware, or what might look like just some dude that's trying to get some hardware. And I remember sending the email, and I'm like, no way. There's no way they're gonna respond. There's absolutely no way, because I had no idea your guys' story and what you had been through and what you guys had planned for the future. And then what do you know, probably, I don't know, within I think a day you responded on Twitter. And then within those 24 hours, we were shooting emails back and forth. Looks like our first email was on April 24th. And then you had a FedEx tracking number for me on April 30th. So it was just like, camera, let's go. Let's do this.
Well, we can play with them all day long, and that's great, but it's not going to teach us what we want to know.
Right.
And we really look for people like you who are going to tear it apart and have fun with it and play with it. somebody who's going to plug it in and say, well, the auto features aren't as great as I can get with X, Y, or Z is like, that's not our audience.
You're holding it wrong.
No, I mean, you've gone through, you know, some blue wired versions of this thing, which is, you know, pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And for us, it's really the people who want to explore and innovate and want to do things that they haven't been able to do before and really want to learn and be part of that exploration. Somebody who wants something that is, you know, like their phone where everything is done for you. I'll be honest, this probably isn't the camera for you.
Right.
You're going to be really disappointed and frustrated because it doesn't do things in an
Instead of
auto,
you.
you know.
For you.
What's that?
It doesn't do it
For you. It allows you to do it
but it allows it to do way more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, do it for you.
Yes.
You can do more and you can do it better.
It's sort of like going into your garage and finding one of those big red toolboxes with every tool you can imagine in there.
Yep.
Right? You know, 100,000 tools at your disposal, right?
Yep.
That's what it is. It's not going to do something for you, but it's going to be every tool you want to play with.
Well, speaking of learning, we got to remove that first video you guys put out of me because my color grading in that video is terrible. I went back and looked at that video today, and I thought that looked good when I first did it. And it looks terrible compared to how I have it looking now. But I remember launching the Sub2r Control Center suite for the first time, and I saw RGB sliders instead of the traditional white balance slider, and I went, oh, fuck. I went, oh, man, this is not going to be good. But then eventually you start grabbing things, you start sliding them left and right, you get one color value right, then you move on to the next, you keep moving stuff around, and now I got the prototype camera set up on that other computer, and I was able to sit down and get it to kind of close to where I wanted it. The one in there, I haven't got on up-to-date drivers or the control center. It's still using 1.8, which I think you guys are on 2.2 now or 2.3.
Yeah, 2.23.
Yeah, so
Which version board is that? That's the other question.
He's got one of the boards that is shoved forward.
Okay.
yeah, with aux power, and
Yeah.
I don't think that one had an SPF cage. I think it was.
Has got an old one.
Do you have one of the ones that has just an
Gigi?
Ethernet port on the back?
Just Ethernet and then USB-C 3.1.
Oh God.
Oh God,
Yeah.
he's got an old one.
And it's
You got
kicking
that
still.
heat there, boy.
I mean, I put probably 20 hours into that camera just within the past 2 weeks alone, building keyboards and stuff.
Yeah, to me, it's good to see people using them and playing with them, and you know, we want to see more of that, and we hopefully will. I mean, now that we're in production, this is when the excitement begins for us. And it was so kind of going around in circles though. Before TwitchCon 2 years ago, we wanted to show the power of a platform like this. And I knew one of the big complaints that streamers have is green screen. And so we were knocking ideas around, and I said, you know, green screen drives people nuts. They hate, like, the back here, the shadows and things like that. And they hate lighting them and this whole thing. And Igor said, you know, we can make that go away. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. And that's where when we went to that first TwitchCon, it was a single band color substitution.
Okay.
And the ability to do that.
I hated that so much. What you've been doing to me for 3 days.
So we would go someplace, and there was this one place outside, which was the Copacabana, was their outside bar, right? And it had this wall with kind of sky blue peeling paint on it, and it had trees and shadows and things like this. And it would be like, Serge, turn it green. And he'd go, fuck you. Because it would take him hours to dial it in, and then the sun would move a little bit and fuck everything up, right?
Oh man.
we went everywhere in TwitchCon, inside and in the hotel lobby, every place, and we were demonstrating this. And what was amazing is, from concept to the program to debugging it was about a week.
We're blessed with geniuses.
Wow.
That's what sort of reveals what we can do, is that it begins with that. And then we realize that we can do more than that. And so that's why we went to this 4. And you can see no one in their right mind sits in front of, 4 pieces of cardboard like this, right? But
Right.
that's kind of our joke, is you can go get a 99-cent tablecloth from the party store, stick it on the wall with wrinkles and shadows, and pretty much turn it into a green screen.
Right. And go ahead.
And that really just shows the power that you have as a creator and innovator when the pipeline is opened up to you and you're not restricted by what somebody else says you have to live with.
Right. And going back to your point about, community and having people that are willing to take things apart. When I unfortunately wasn't at TwitchCon, but seeing all of the messages and the tweets and the Instagram stories of people walking up to the booth and saying hello and checking stuff out, like, that was such a heartwarming moment for me. Like, not only did I live vicariously through all those people that got to meet you guys in person, but just starting to see kind of that whirlwind of passion and dedication to the craft, seeing that all kind of unfold in my little virtual news feed was really, really awesome. And it was so cool to see you guys all get to spend some time together.
Oh, this last TwitchCon was,
My God.
we almost didn't make it.
Right. I remember you talking about that.
And it was a series of events that just came together, and basically they said, hey, you want to be here? And we said, God, yeah. And they said, okay, here's the deal. You can get in Thursday and take a look at it, but for you to be here, it's got to look amazing. And we sat down and we said, by
What's
when?
amazing? By
Friday morning.
Oh my God.
And we looked around and we said, holy crap, what do we do? And Serge and I got there and we were sketching things out, and we grabbed a bunch of stuff we had left over from Maker Faire, 3 years before then?
2015.
And we just ran like crazy. And, we pulled it off. And from the moment the doors opened until they closed the exhibition hall, there were people at the booth. And it was just, we were out of our voice by the second day. And
yeah.
But it was such a positive experience. And that's one of the things that keeps us going, is the community. We really have a very strong community following, and we want to build something amazing for that community.
And I can tell you that's the same fire, the same passion that burns in streamers. And it's like, it's getting live and seeing people again and again, people who are passionate about the things that you do. It's just like it's a daily rejuvenation, right? Oh, okay. You telling me this camera can get girls in my room? That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, give him the other one, Serge. Because you got to drop the control panel, because I can't see. You gotta cover it.
TOS, be careful back there, Serge. Hey. Oh man. So before we there we go. That is a perfect combination. Girls and dinosaurs.
There you go.
Wait a minute. How do these all go together? Oh my Lord.
Oh, hey, sometimes late at night, it gets pretty wild in this.
So speaking of, oh my God, Serge, we got to abide by some rules. That was perfect. Is there anything else that you guys want to touch on before we jump into the Q&A?
The chat woke up. We should have done this sooner.
Podcast is a lurk session. Everybody sits back, relax, they take off their pants. It's always a good time.
Oh, so Vonda brought up something that we sort of just challenge. You talk about roadblocks and challenges. We're just about to go into production, and we find that some people that are using the camera can't use it with a single cable. And we went, oh crap, what's wrong? Because we had 5 cameras running simultaneously off of an exotic laptop at TwitchCon. And we're very proud of that. You know, it's like, hey, yeah, runs beautifully off of one cable. You know, it's like, what we found is that not every USB port is created equal, even if they look the same. Not every USB-C port is a 3.1 port. It could be a 2.0. It could be a 3.0.
This is what pisses me off about USB-C. They're like, oh, we're just going to bring out this one universal USB connection and we're going to solve all your problems. You fucking lied.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so we also, it was funny too, because we thought, okay, maybe it's cables, you know, because we were seeing
where's
this.
your little thing?
Oh, it's behind Serge up there on the rack. So, oh, you'll love this. You like hacking things. Wait till you see this.
Serge, grab that little thing.
So we order a bunch of cables. 3 cables.
They're behind, right there.
No, right there. So 3 cables, same manufacturer,
Yeah.
same order, same packet. Vonda starts taking them apart, dissecting them. All 3 cables, first of all, they're different lengths. And the internal shielding and wire gauge is different, but they all look identical from the outside.
Wow.
So we built this. You love hacking things.
Oh, yeah.
We built this. This is our little connector tester, right? For testing cables.
Wow.
To see what's going on. And, you know, we thought, oh my God, if there's something wrong with the camera, we got to change. And, you know, when you make a change to a printed circuit board, like our motherboard, that's 20 grand just to do a board change.
Holy.
It's 14 layers. So if you have one component or a bunch of components you're changing, you got to drop 20 grand to do a board run. And we, you know, that means going back to the bank, right? You know, and seeing what's left in there.
Right.
That's a lot of money. And we went through and we tested it. We grabbed every computer we could. And we ran every test we could. And what we found is that every computer is different. And the exotic is, and I'm not pitching exotic, but as an example, here's a gaming laptop. It powers 5 cameras simultaneously each one off of one cable. And we streamed all TwitchCon like that. We go to Serge's Monster, which we carry around in this massive roadie case, right? Vonda calls it the vampire coffin. It's so big. And we see this huge, I mean, he's got a 750 watt power supply in this thing. And it can barely put out enough current, and even in his 3.1 red port to drive the camera without auxiliary power.
And Serge is not even defending his monster.
So we went back and forth. And bottom line is, we're going to ship you an A to C cable. It's the most stable. We're also going to ship it with a power supply because
we don't
know what you got.
Right.
But we do know with auxiliary power, you'll be able to drive it. So
some of the facts
of the
story is slightly skewed.
What?
Strictly about my machine.
Yo, the wimpy machine? What? So defend it, Serge. Let's hear this.
The problem, C ports. It seems like C ports is where the biggest trouble is. A ports seems to be just like 3.1, right? Oh, that's a champion. It will suck out dry everything else around it. But it's a notorious C ports. You know, the latest edition. They seem to be very iffy when it comes to how much you really get, how much power, as much as it advertised, as always, up to, right? We are back to up to garbage. You may, on a perfect day, when the stars line up, get all that has been advertised, 3, 5 amp, whatever it is. But when you start measuring things up, that's not the story. Especially the more things you start plugging into your USB ports, it seems one of those are taking more power from another one. So you're never going to have an equivalent distribution of power. So one of the things, as an instructional video for the future users, find the port that is actually true, isolated, not shared. Whenever you open up those, especially big cases like desktops, you start finding out, oh my God, what are those wires coming from another USB to your front of the machine?
Yep.
Guess what? These are not your standalone, just another additional. No, they are shared ports. And this is the camera that requires, this is the high-speed camera.
Well,
it will pour so much traffic in it, so you do need to have a dedicated ports. Otherwise, you're out of luck.
yeah,
I know on my laptop, a single port works.
yes.
Yep.
And what people need to realize is that this camera is a very powerful little computer. And you're trying to drive that off of a USB port. I mean, you gotta look at the reality of things. I mean, this little guy cranks 1080p, 60 frames a second, uncompressed.
Right.
24-bit data. I mean, that's a lot of data it's passing, and no latency. We have 1 frame of latency.
That's why we provide the backup plan, which is if for whatever reason a computer is not capable of producing what it advertised in the first place, here is an auxiliary power that will solve all of your problems.
And our original aux power was this short little cord with this like little weenie plug in the back, right?
Yeah, with the little rubber piece that you kind of had to notch in there.
Yeah. So now what comes with it, we should send you one if you don't have one.
It was an electrical foreskin.
Yeah, exactly. You get to play electrical rabbi, right? The new ones have a 10-foot cable on them and a regular standard 5.5 millimeter plug in the barrel jack in the back. It's actually a locking jack. We don't have the power supply doesn't have the twist lock on it, but it's actually a locking jack in the back. So, but that was the latest thing that we discovered that almost brought us, it was like, do we call the assembly house and tell them not to produce because we have a problem? And we were 72 hours of sitting on the edge of our chairs trying to figure this thing out, tearing cables apart and measuring everything we could find. It was like,
right.
No, the camera works the way it was designed. We just can't account for absolutely every possible combination in the world, but we can give you a solution.
We can't rely on the manufacturer's third party, whoever makes motherboards,
the motherboard, the BIOS, the
everything
USB hub,
exactly.
the power distribution. It's not
so
anything.
we are trying to solve for it with the workarounds, which is in this case we will have an optional power supply. If you in doubt or it doesn't work, well, there is an option for you. Just plug it in.
And again, we're hoping the community comes back and says, hey, I'm running this and this works.
Right. This motherboard model with these ports. Yep.
And try and find out from a manufacturer what port does what on your USB card. Forget it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the most that I've been able to see is there's apps that you can download that show you what ports are on what controllers. And you can just kind of unplug and plug in and try, because trying to find decent USB ports for certain things for streamers that is not a foreign concept whatsoever. I actually just last week I was talking to Looples on Twitter, and she's like, I can't get my webcam to stop lagging when I'm capturing VR. And I'm like, try putting them on 2 different USB controllers. And sure enough, it was just a bandwidth issue. So that is not a foreign concept to streamers whatsoever.
It can be the cable. It can be any number of things.
We are learning something that other manufacturers' webcams learned already. Some of those are supplied with the dedicated, specially manufactured USB cable that will only work for this camera. If you try other cables that look alike, it will not.
And if you try that cable on something else, it won't work. Yeah, we did that. So
they already learned what we are learning. As I'm saying, we are taking a step forward. We have no idea. Nobody's holding hands. Nobody out there is trying to say, hey, Sub2r, you know what? This is what we've learned.
Oh, yeah. They won't. They go like, oh, yeah, you're going to try that? Sounds like that character on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Oh, we tried that.
Right. Yeah, right. They knew all along. Oh,
yeah, and that's the thing is, there's no book, there's no manual. there's no website that says this is how you
We'll
do
only
it.
go where no man has
It's
gone
gone before.
Somebody's got to be first, right?
Oh God, yeah. So I mean, but that's part of the excitement, and that's part of the achievement, is to be standing here after all this time, and the community that's been behind us has been phenomenal.
That, speaking of the community, the phenomenal outcome of speaking to a community when they are challenging us, we're going back to the whiteboard and coming out something that does not exist otherwise in the universe of the cameras, which is SFP cage.
Oh, the SFP cage, yeah.
Talk
That
about
was-
that is the relationship we had with the community when I want this, I want that. Everybody
yeah.
wants something else. And we're thinking, right.
More, Serge, more.
Yeah. Well, every time you took a camera to somebody, they go,
If only.
if only that put out an HDMI, that would be a really cool camera. And then the next person goes, if that did SDI,
Mm-hmm.
I'd want one of those.
Yep.
And the next person you talk to is going to do deep sea research, and they go, yeah, but if it doesn't output an optical, we can't use it.
Right.
And you're beginning to see the back of your camera just get huge, right?
Yeah.
And suddenly you're going, oh my God, I have to have, what you don't realize is behind each one of those is this massive amount of PHY chips which support that output. So you have to then configure your output to each one of those channels. So you have to have a way to switch channels and say, this, I'm going to this plug, or I'm going to this plug, or I'm going to this plug.
Right.
I'm going to have a programmable clock because each one of those video formats has a different register clock that it drives off of. And so you start ending up with thousands and thousands of dollars worth of components to support everything. Or we found these guys who make these really cool little modules, the SFP modules.
So,
Oh.
the right.
And so if somebody says, hey, I want an SFP module, I want an HDMI module, there, now your camera outputs HDMI. And if they say, I don't have one here with me, but if they say I want an optical module, you slide an optical module in there.
Right.
And Serge is going to take over. Good.
I'm just saying, this is what it looks like. The SFP cage is right there. So instead of having a port, we used to have here Gigi.
You've got one of those.
And then this is when the story goes, oh, I wish I had something that would give me the optical or HDMI, you name it, right? This is when the Gigi was, let go. And the new SFP cage was introduced. It looks like a big one hole, right?
You're right.
Until, as Richard already had it.
That's Serge's arms.
Right. And I think he has more muscles in his forearm than in my entire body.
Yes. So those people who don't return the cables with an evaluator camera,
yeah.
he said, Serge, had to get them. You have cable, please return.
That's right. I'm the repo
Just
guy.
remember that when you don't return the cables to the camera.
So these are little modules. This particular one is the HDMI, and somebody says, I want to have HDMI. All right, slide it in. And guess what? The only cams out there, you're going to have a simultaneous feed coming off the USB and the module itself. Two different streams that you can use. It's not a splitter. They have both unique streams coming each way.
And people who know that I've been podcasting for 3 years, and I've either used 2 cameras or a virtual appliance to send my camera to multiple apps at once, and they're both not great. So hearing that as a power user is kind of one of the most intriguing features for me, because that's something that I use on a weekly basis.
We should talk about another modification I've had to make because of that.
Oh, yeah. So, Vaughn, you talk about challenges, right? We thought we had run the camera full out with the HDMI output with a module in there. What we found is that we didn't. And when we did fire it up, the thing runs a lot of power. So it generates a lot of heat. and the top plate was hitting 60C.
Oh, wow.
That's toasty.
Yeah, very toasty.
And which means that the FPGA inside is running close to 100, which is near its max. And, that's way out of range. If you're doing the single stream, the camera gets warm. It sits in its 40s, but that's no big deal. That's fine. So we ended up.
Do you have one?
Well, this has got the big ugly hole that I
Search.
carved in the bottom.
Get one out of that gray box.
So we tried a bunch of different things. And what we found is that we had to put a small active cooling fan in it.
Okay.
And it's a 1 CFM fan. That's how small it is.
It's just a tiny guy.
It is. It creates just a little bit of positive pressure inside the chamber, and it'll take the top plate down to 40C.
Okay.
Drops it 20 degrees.
Wow.
We also did some audio tests, and we put
Just to mention that, as always, you can control it.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you want a fan, press the button on the UI. You don't want a fan, by all means, don't
Yeah.
use it.
So the fan is controlled by the onboard power. So if you plug the HDMI module in, it will kick the fan on.
Okay.
Itself. If it gets too hot, it'll kick it on. And if you want it on, you can turn it on, or you can turn it off, because it's controllable from a user modification we're going to do to the control center. It gives you the ability to turn it on and off. So, and it's quiet. You can't hear. I mean, I've got one running right now and you can't hear it.
So are you using the mic on the camera right now?
We're using a remote mic right now.
Got it. Okay.
Because of the setup with all the cameras we have going right now.
Right.
But even if we did some audio tests. We ended up having to build, God, talk about challenges. So you can get an acoustic gasket for a 40 by 40 millimeter fan. You can get one for a 50
20 by 20.
or no, for a 60 by 60, or an 80 by 80, 120 by 120. No,
20 by 20.
no, you can't get them for the little ones.
30 by 30 you can.
30 by 30, which is the size of our fan, they don't make an acoustic gasket for.
Of course.
So had to make our own.
Wow.
And we can't fit a bigger fan in, so it's like, oh, they make a million of these fans, but you can't get an acoustic gasket for it. So you've got to build your own. Every step of the way.
Every freaking day, it's a new challenge.
Yeah. And it's fortunate that we know this guy who loves us, who's got his own CNC machine in a garage who could modify these bottom plates to fit this. So, we go and get it all set up for the fan and everything like this. And then we realize, oh, the connector to the fan is too tall.
And
By what, 0.1 millimeter?
Less than that, 0.7 millimeters.
oh my God, that would
That's why we
piss
took-
me off.
That's why we had to take this other portion of the bottom plate off.
Oh,
'Cause,
wow.
it's thick. It's 4 millimeters thick.
So
And we had to relieve it a bit for the connector.
have you had anybody that has maybe put a LED ring light on it?
You could.
Because that would be one of the things that some people might be interested in, is to just get one of those little Adafruit ring lights that is, I don't know if it would be able to be powered by the IO pins on the front.
No, right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 2 rows of pins. Top row is JTAG, which allows you to program and debug the FPGA.
Okay.
Bottom row is the GPIO pins that bypass everything, goes straight to the image sensor for strobe and sync and other control functions.
Strobe light.
Then there are 2 pins on the end that are ground and then configurable power. So inside is a jumper that allows you to change the outbound power between 2.5 and 5 volts.
Give me that 5 volt. All I need is a freaking Pro Micro and an LED ring light, and I'm good to go.
There you go.
Okay.
So we knew there would be people like you. We didn't know what the hell you were going to do, but we decided to give you this big ass plug right here and say, hey, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And you may not want 5 volts. You may want 2.5 volts.
Okay.
So that's configurable. There's a little jumper inside. You just move the jumper and that changes your output voltage.
Got it. Okay. Is default 5 or is it 2?
I don't know what it comes. I don't know what they've been setting it to, but it doesn't matter. It's easy to change.
Okay.
It's just a simple jumper changes between 2.5 and 5.
Got it. Okay.
Defaults to 2.5.
I'll plug it in and you'll know.
Yeah.
How about it? Stick a fork in there and tell me how much it zaps.
But I mean, even, like for people like you, there's this row right here of places. We call this our blue wire patch. It allows you to solder your own components to the motherboard.
Okay.
There's also a bank of those on the camera board. So they're all standard component sizes,
Okay.
right? So if you need to solder, say you've got something, you say, I just need a resistor here. I just need a decoupling cap, and I want to attach something else to it. So you don't have to be like hanging stuff all over the place. We said, well, hey, we'll just give you a place you can solder onto the board.
Right.
We don't know what you're going to do with it.
Right. That's the beauty of it.
We have space there. You might as well use it, right?
Right. The one thing that I just thought of was using that 5-volt, because we were talking about this a couple months back, where I wanted to try and build a mini motor that I could attach to the lens to build a autofocus thing.
There you go.
So just get a little microcontroller, a little servo. I actually have one of my mods, G for Greg. He's huge into microelectronics and robotics, and we planned out a build in order to build that for it. So maybe that's something I'm gonna have to give a shot at. Yeah.
Well, and again, we don't know what people want to do, but you know how hard it is to go and try and solder onto onto a printed circuit board. It's like, oh, well, where am I going to go? Oh, am I going to disconnect this? Am I going to short something? Am I going to, screw it up because I'm pulling power off of something?
Right.
And we made all these places on the camera where you can get isolated power so you can play with it. And, that's kind of the fundamental behind everything we did here.
That's a hobbyist dream.
Yeah.
Cool.
The other community-related incident, which turned out to be a positive.
What was that?
Because every time we talk, every time we collect feedback, and it's one of those what if, and I wish, and if only, it's the ability to save settings.
Oh, yeah.
And hotkeys.
That was one of the first things that I brought up was, is there a way that I can set presets? And that has been the saving grace for me. So bravo.
Yeah, is to be able to save settings and save your presets.
What are those?
And-
What are the files called again? What's the file extension?
Text. It's a TXT file.
No, I don't. I know Igor calls it something.
Let's see, I'll
Is it?
tell you what it is.
I thought
It's
you said it was text.
FWS.
Yes, that's what it is, and that stands for.
I have no idea.
I think
No text file?
No, well, it is text file if you can open it up
I thought you
and
said
read
it
it
was
through the
text.
text. But what does
WS
FWS stand for?
Frankie Whisperer file.
Frankie
Oh,
Whisperer.
Frankie.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I remember when the presets first came out, I emailed Rich and I'm like, hey, awesome camera. By the way, what the hell is a Frankie Whisperer file?
So the little camera is Piggy, and then when we went to build the bigger one, there's and I won't ask Serge to go get it because he'll trip over everything, but was this 1 foot square that we put inside of a plexiglass box, and we called it, it was the Pokemobile, but it was Franken Piggy because we kept adding parts onto it and building this huge, massive thing. And that got shortened down to Frankie. And so you'll see weird references to Piggy Control Center, Frankie Whisperer. These are all Igor's strange ass names that he gives stuff that unfortunately sticks. We can't get it unstuck.
I'm all about it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's we can jump right into the Q&A and we can raffle off a couple questions and then we'll bid ourselves out of here.
Get new chip, then all we need to do is never to go
So-
get the whole new camera.
I think in this side of the world, it's time for adult beverage.
You guys are just now starting?
We've been so busy talking to you.
Oh, no, that was the whole point. You were supposed to start drinking at the beginning.
Oh shit.
What would you like?
Well, it's so late. We gotta amp it up. I'll take tequila.
And you?
The,
You want? Yes. Okay.
no, not the killer.
I don't know. I started with a little daiquiri as soon as we started.
Oh.
All All right. Well, first question. This one comes from Vans on Twitter. Aside from cameras, what does Sub2r look to create in the future?
Aside from cameras, basically, well, if you take Sub2r as itself, we want to expand out what supports the camera. So, you know, anything from battery packs to 3-axis gimbals to displays, things like that would extend that on. We'd love to get back to our core tech, doing the 3D imaging. I think that
Real-time 3D imaging.
real-time 3D imaging in color was
Pretty much the idea that you can, with a very portable device, you can build 3D map of anything as you go.
Yeah.
And record it.
And the video,
Imagine Google Map, but made in 3D. Anywhere somebody goes, you can, just like a portable 3D capturing device.
right. And this and the technology we developed is really cool. So it's got a lot of very powerful applications going forward. Would love to get to a point where we can get back to that.
Right.
As the point cloud.
And then there's other things we want to do around the camera. One of the dreams we've always had is to have a studio where people can come in and stream or make podcasts or videos using our equipment with our people there to teach them and help them to use that.
Okay.
And then we have a nonprofit that is looking for ways of bringing sustainable economics to very rural parts of the world. One project we did was in Coban, Guatemala. And what's interesting about places of the world like that is that while they don't have they don't have houses with floors, they have dirt floors and tin roofs, they have internet.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids play video games.
Right.
So being able to set up a place for kids to go and stream and be connected with the rest of the world is something we would love to do, because it's a way for them to generate income. So from an economic basis, it brings revenue from outside of the community into these very rural places. It connects them with the rest of the world and the world with them. So you can learn, hey, what goes on in the jungles of Guatemala, right?
Right.
People like to grow up there. And what they need is they need equipment, and they need someone to administer that, to watch out and mentor them. And so these are the kinds of things we'd love to do going forward. And
Okay.
Serge and I were driving down to LA one time, and I said, we were actually going to demo our camera with a couple of people. And I said, this is what I want to do. I want to take the camera to people and let them see what they can do with it and play with it. And, we'll get someone to run the company, but I want to go out and play.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
This is what's exciting to me. So
From the technical aspect, camera is just a getaway. This is just the door that we open. The fun starts after this point, because it was built. It's an intelligence inside. It's a mini computer that you can start thinking about. What are these pieces of software that we can start developing? Which is, we talked about Holy Grail. The long-term goal is to implement an artificial intelligence to reconstruct the picture.
Whoa!
So what it means is,
So
a lot of people deal with issues, low light, darkness, and all that. And that picture gets destroyed as long as, if you don't have any light source, a very poor light source, it's very difficult to recover details. Everything's blurry, everything's lost, so it's pretty bad. The very sophisticated algorithms out there, that is, some of those white papers, some of those are actually pushed through the
manual process.
Manual process, right? They do exist, but they don't have platform to try it on. This is the platform to actually start implementing those algorithms. It's a trainable algorithm. It's a really fascinating piece.
Okay.
Anybody can almost anybody can participate in the training. You can train an algorithm that deals with a very particular aspect of the environment itself, and it can be shared. But the end result is that from a really, really, really poor looking picture, you can reconstruct it just like it was the shot was taken under the sun.
And so what happens now in the camera is you have a very linear pipeline. You demosaic the image, and then you adjust certain parts of it, the contrast or the brightness or the saturation, and you move through the process until you output it at the end.
Right.
With AI, you can rip all of that out, and you can say, what did you start with? And what do you want it to look like at the end? And that's one algorithm in the middle.
Okay.
And to be able to do that, you need to be able to learn. That's the big challenge with algorithms. Right now, artificial intelligence with cameras is that a dog or is that a chair? Am I looking at a person? Am I looking at a giraffe? But it's not processing the image. And to be able to process the image, you have to know what you started with, what you ended with, what happened in the middle, and especially at the end, what a human thought was a good looking picture.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an ASIC, if you have a closed loop system, you don't have access to that information. You can't extract it. We have an open architecture, so we know exactly what the image looked like the minute it left the image sensor. We know what it looked like at the end, and we know we can put in a methodology for learning where the user says, that's a good picture.
I want that. Right.
I want that. And then when you collect that information, you say, okay, now we're seeing what's happening. And one of the beauties of what we've built is the ability to foster that, to grow that kind of technology that doesn't exist in a non-programmable camera.
Right.
And that's kind of Serge's dream, Igor's dream. We'll get there next week.
All right.
Think of it this way. We are at the verge of introducing something that folks just not familiar with. It looks like a camera, but it's actually a platform.
Right.
Imagine as a PC was introduced a long time ago. Nobody had any idea. So what is this exactly? Is it a calculator? Is it something more, something less? It was difficult to grasp of what that technology can do. It took some time before, well, it became of what it is right now. Everybody is very much familiar of what I can do, what anybody or somebody else can do. We are essentially introducing a new platform. And it's incredibly difficult to explain what it is because we constantly finding ourselves pretty much saying, yes, it looks like a camera. It does what the camera should, but that's just the very beginning. The rest of it is what inside. What the computing that you can do inside the box before you get the final picture of what it will be, what it should be. Anybody's guess.
And the digital imaging algorithms that we use today that are in every camera in some variation, even the shot on this
campaign.
Camera,
Yeah.
Those algorithms were developed in 1975.
Wow.
And there's been very little change to those algorithms because everybody is stuck with the same process.
Right.
There's variations on the theme, but the mechanism is all exactly the same. Until you change that mechanism, you don't have a way to create something new. And what we have done with this camera is we said, it's programmable. We can change how the process works.
You like to fidget.
Yeah.
And if you have an idea for the algorithm, who you gonna call?
Right. The surge protector,
right now,
that's
you've got
who.
no technology that would allow you to implement your algorithms. That's what the platform is. It's like a computer. I write this software. I'm going to upload it to a PC environment and let's see what it does. It's the same concept.
Yeah.
Earlier, when you guys were talking about not getting cameras back, somebody in chat gave him the name the Surge Protector. Thought that was very fitting.
Yes.
All right, next question from Middle Age Stream. I'm saving my dollars to get one of these cameras. I'm not much of a tinkerer, though. What are some of the simplest modifications to the Sub2r camera someone can make that can really improve its quality?
Lens.
Yeah, I mean, coming from somebody who has done both modifications of the camera itself and one set it and forget it. I mean, you plug it in, you do your color grading, set your resolution and frame rate, and then you can leave it if you want to, and that's kind of the greatness of it.
I would say lens and color substitution are two very powerful things. One of the things is it tools.sub2r? What did Igor write? Is it tools.sub2r? I think it is. I could be wrong.
I had my 2 sips already of champagne, so.
Oh, so anyway, yes, it surges over the edge. He's a lightweight. As big as he is, he's a lightweight. We have a tool in there that you basically give the distance from the camera and how big of a box you want to have as your field of view, and it calculates the field of view of the lens that you need for your environment. And as we go forward, what we're hoping to do is be able to match that with a lens and say, the closest lens we offer, or the closest lens you can get to this that works with our camera, is this lens. And that way, when the streamer says, I'm going to be really close to my lens and I want a wide field of view, this is what I want. Or I want a cinematic look, so I want a really nice depth of field, this is the lens you want. Or I'm really in a dark environment or really in a bright environment. The ability to change lenses is huge for a streamer.
Yep.
The ability to get rid of the need for an expensive, green screen and deal with something that is easier to light. You're not trying to light all the shadows and do all this crazy ass stuff. That helps. And then going beyond that is some of the other things that we're going to be adding to the power of how much control you have over the image,
Which
to
we're not
really
talking about today.
differentiate you from anyone else. Now, just using color substitution, what Duncan likes to do is turn himself into Twitch Prime. So he goes to this whole thing where he substitutes out the background to nothing and then turns himself into this cartoon purple.
Yep.
It's the ability to create an artistic expression of yourself that differentiates you from everybody else out there. And the more tools we can give you to expand on that, the more you'll be able to differentiate your stream and more personalized your stream becomes.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have a certain color palette.
Right. Absolutely. If you couldn't tell.
Yeah, no. And I haven't seen the clown all night long.
Right. He's hanging there.
I hate clowns.
Speaking of lens, right? We went through a lot of options.
Oh God, yeah.
So when we call stock lens that comes with the camera, it's a really high quality lens. We didn't compromise on lens at all. You can go and experiment whichever lens you like to use it for whatever needs and purposes, wide angle, short depths of field, that's up to you. But the stock lens provider is going to give you the ultimate experience.
Yeah, we went through a lot of lenses, and as we talked about earlier, our partners, Avatar is our lens partner, and they make the lenses we use from them are chromatically correct and optically non-distortion. So they're beautiful lenses. I mean, they're these little M12 lenses, but they're absolutely gorgeous quality. And that's one of the things that we wanted to provide people is that, you can change lenses. And that's a big difference in your stream.
Oh, absolutely.
Just the lens alone.
Now, speaking of lenses, right, even though we've somewhat showed room, a big one that sits across the room, but keep in mind, because of the sensor that we use is significantly smaller from, let's say, full frame or for thirds, et cetera, right? It's going to work as the glorified magnifying glass. You can't just put it in front of you and expect that you will fulfill the image. No, you're probably going to see an eye or two at best of yourself, right? We do work on sometime in the future, we are building partnership with another third party that may help us with the introduction of the so-called speed lens. That's essentially a mini adapter that sits between the sensor and the main lens, that you can refocus the big image that's coming from the large lens and focus it on the smaller sensor. And that helps with that nice, juicy, milky appearance that a lot of DSLRs do today. And you can do, the fancy one, which is I only want to have my face as an image that is in focus and sharp and all nice, and everything else becomes like a bokeh effect.
Yes.
So if you think
Streamers
about it,
love bokeh.
yeah, a DSLR lens makes a circle about this big when it's focused, and we need a circle about this big.
Right.
So right now, if you put a DSLR lens on our camera, you're only going to see the center of it. What we're doing is developing a lens adapter that brings the DSLR lens down to the same size as our image sensor.
Ah, okay.
Which the other thing we keep glazing over, but the camera board is interchangeable.
Yep.
As we come up with new camera boards, and we've got a number of them in the works, you don't buy a new camera. So for the streamer, yes, this is an investment, and we realize that. But when we come up with a new camera board, you don't buy a new camera.
Right.
You buy a new camera board and update it. It's just like when you have a gaming PC and you want a new graphic card.
Or RAM.
You don't throw the PC out the window.
Right.
You put a new graphic card in. We designed the camera to be exactly the same thing. You just upgrade the camera board.
Right.
Perfect analogy, because we keep motherboard for a long time. You're going to keep motherboard the same.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the camera board concerned, for motherboard, it's going to get the same signal. So it's completely agnostic to the motherboard. It will understand, doesn't matter if it's another chip, a new chip, or whatever it is, the signal that comes to the motherboard for the processing purposes isn't going to change until we come to the point when motherboard needs to be replaced. God knows when, at some point. At the moment, we don't have any needs for it because it has enough power.
Yeah, right.
Nothing stays forever, right?
It's a pretty massive little beast inside of there. So,
absolutely.
Vonda was kind enough to remind me you've got other questions.
Yes, but before we go, just one little, just because of.
No, I love tangents.
Yeah. So wait. We were visiting Knox, who runs Goblin Cavalcade down in LA. Really sketchy part of town. And when we show up there, I looked at Serge and said, "You will protect me." And he looks at me and goes, "I run faster than you."
Serge, I'm gonna need one flex from you. If you're gonna give us a little bit more information, we're gonna need one flex. Jesus Christ! Oh my God!
So those people who don't return cables, remember that.
Serge protect, but he also attack.
You like kneecaps?
Yeah.
So just one perk, even though, let's say you don't have a speed lens, anything like that, and if you have a big lens, like let's say from the DSLRs or some cinematic one, you can still use it if, for example, like myself, I don't want to be in Richard's face. If it's a dual, for example, stream,
I don't want him in
there's
my
an
face
engineer
either.
who runs all and everything, including cameras. I don't have to be anywhere near Richard. I actually have it far away. I can have a full control over it without being in the streamer face. Or if you do it on a venues like, for example. So that allows you a pretty good advantage over otherwise more traditional way of capturing anything. Unless you go overboard with tech stuff. But,
Right, which some people love to do.
yeah. Of course, if you got mountain of cash sitting doing nothing, nothing's preventing you from going all the way into hundreds of $1,000s worth of equipment, that's what you need, go for it. What they try to do is to bring that quality down to a little bit more simple folks, somebody who can afford without compromising on the quality of the picture that you get. We're trying to bring that advantages of the high-end equipment to the masses, so that everybody can produce a high quality content, which is these days, and probably a lot of people found themselves skipping videos just because it's a low grade. 360p, I don't know, I'm not going to watch it. 480p, I'm not going to watch it, right? They're now getting used to at least 720p, maybe that is like almost the lowest considered resolution and the frame rate that the average user these days accepting as the quality content.
Let's
Oh,
face
absolutely.
it. What button do you press on recreational content when you want to see the quality, right? It's
Oh,
always
HD, absolutely. Recreational, age appropriate. What does Serge know about age appropriate content?
right, exactly. What's dancing girls behind me, right?
All right, next question comes from Salty Sam. How did you go about finding content creators to try out your prototypes and work with your team to get to the production camera you've ended up with?
So it's two ways. Bon Whiskey has been an amazing person to work with. He's our community manager, for lack of a better term, liaison. And a lot of people that we've met have come through Bon. And what we look for in those people are not people who want to plug something in and see an instantaneous result. We want somebody who first understands who we are. We're not a big, mega giant corporation.
3/4 of the company are sitting here.
Yeah,
Right.
You've got 3/4 of the company sitting here. The other quarter is sitting in Berlin, sleeping right now, right?
Oh, he made it okay finally, huh?
Yeah. So this is it. I mean, it's our personal savings, it's everything, right? So we're a small little startup, and we look for people like yourself who are intelligent and want to explore and want to have fun. And that's the kind of person we want to have. That's the kind of person we want to have as an evaluator. The people who just want to plug it in and say, oh, this compared to X, no. And actually we have an internal rule. We never compare ourselves to another company. They built their product because it fulfilled a specific need, and
10
a
years
lot
ago.
of them do amazing things, right?
Yep.
But don't stay ignorant. What we do
Right.
internally, we are asking question, can I achieve the same?
Exactly.
That's how we compare internally. We're not going
Right.
out and saying, hey, look at this one versus us, pounding on the chest.
So when it came to things like frame rate, we went out and bought a millisecond clock, and we put ourselves against a whole bunch of standard cameras and said, how do we perform against a millisecond scientific clock? And you can see that every 16.6 milliseconds, we generate a new frame, which is 60 frames a second. The lower end cameras don't. They sacrifice that.
Yep.
For various reasons. If motion capture is important to you, if smooth motion and clean, crisp video is important to you, then what we provide is an advantage. And we stand behind what we say. So it's very, very important to us to not push the marketing puffery of up to.
Right. Or Serge is going to get angry.
Yeah. And you don't want to see him angry.
No, I do not. And I think I can be proof of that too, as somebody that has used 2 different cameras across 3 different PCs. We've had our quirks here and there, but you can bet your ass that it's going to be smooth. All right, final question comes from Sonder. Any thoughts on experimenting with in the live music world to possibly give Marshall and Blackmagic a run when it comes to small form factor cameras?
Oh, hell yes. We want to piss off everybody we possibly can. That's may not be the company's goal, but it's my personal goal.
Right.
Is to upset a whole lot of people. So one of the things we looked at from the music world is why we put these really great microphones on board. These are sub 26 dB studio quality mics. what I would love to see is our camera in every cafe and nightclub around the world,
That's a lot of cameras.
where people could live broadcast what's happening in these studios.
Right.
Remember the name of the artist in Yerevan that we love?
No, but I know who you mean.
So there's this group called The Band in Armenia, and the woman is an absolute incredible voice. I would love to have our camera broadcasting her around the world, both visually and from an audio standpoint. I would love to have our camera in every single one of these environments to give people the quality of audio and the quality of video that brings that experience home.
Right.
And that's what I mean, if we could do that, that would be phenomenal.
It's a
And
dream.
yeah. I mean, it would be great. And that's what we want to do.
I found her.
You want to pronounce her name? Because
No,
you can
no,
pronounce her
no,
name,
no,
I can't.
No.
You have to know that Bonda's father is Armenian,
Okay.
and we have a great relationship with that country, and the engineers that are there. Very amazingly brilliant people. And there's an artist there that is fabulous, and you're going to have to pronounce her name because I will
I
slaughter
really
it,
don't want to.
but you're going to have to.
Karina Arustamian.
Oh my. Okay.
Exactly.
Incredibly beautiful voice.
Yes.
Like I said earlier, I would, honored by someone telling me, you won't believe what I just did with your camera today,
Right.
like Fallon in Southern Australia. I would be honored if our camera someday live streamed one of her performances in a
Okay.
nightclub in Yerevan.
I got you. All right.
That to me would mean we've arrived.
Right.
We've done what we set out to do. And that's why we're here.
Right. Well, I would say that is a fantastic note to end on. But before we get out of here, I want you guys to take like one last, not one last chance, but one last opportunity to say what you
One
guys,
last chance.
yeah, say what you guys are, like what you're about. What do you have coming up? I've got links to everything for you guys in the chat if anybody is listening that is curious on checking out Sub2r. But feel free to use this last opportunity to just kind of close it up.
I'm going to say I talk too damn much.
No, there's no such thing on this podcast.
Yes.
Like this is considered a short podcast.
So I will say this, and then I'm gonna ask Vonda and Serge to respond, is that this is a life's passion. It has become the passion of our community and our partners. And to me, it is insanely rewarding to be at a place where we've actually brought this to life, to make it something real. And it's people like you. You're one of our test pilots. You've seen the test pilot video.
Yep.
I mean, you've been with us through the worst
Right.
and now with the best. And I can just look forward to the amazing things that we're going to do together. I mean, this is exciting to me. This is what we've worked so hard to make happen.
It really is. And I know, I'll say it 100 times over, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys taking the chance on sending a camera to me. So like, what's this bald-headed loud guy gonna do with this camera? He's got a clown hanging in the background. Did we just fuck up? But I appreciate you guys taking a chance, letting me mess around with it, because it's been a fantastic experience working with all you guys.
Oh, and we look forward to doing a lot of exciting things with you going forward.
Absolutely.
Serge.
By the way, Naaackers, you match our collective, I'd say, behavior rather perfectly.
Yeah.
What we do sometimes, especially when it's late night, there is no other way to continue doing this. If you're too serious about it, we're damn serious about it, but not to the point of that we don't realize that it has to be some kind of fun factor to it.
Absolutely.
We support each other by throwing jokes, doing some really crazy stuff. But with the small community, you can't have any other ways of doing this. Now, speaking of the community, the last words that I'd like to put out is that it's all about community, much like streamers.
Oh, 100%.
Community, without the community, we are nothing. We are talking to ourselves. Without the community, our product is nothing. If it's not used by the community, it serves no purpose. As you and everybody else always shout out, we need your support. Community, we need your support.
Yep.
We have a product out there. We stand behind the product. It's a very small, passionate group of people that try our absolute best to piss off a lot of corporations. They've been in this game for so long. You guys been crying out loud. We need this. Nobody heard you. Nobody wants to hear you. They're too busy pushing MBOs every quarter, and you name what the heck else they need to do, right?
Yeah.
We are trying to offset the scale. We want to do something that hasn't been done for a long time, which is a community, if you will, supported small company for the time being, but focused on it's always a duplex. We are asking and we are listening.
Right.
And everything that we've done so far is based on what we've heard from the community.
And who am I to argue with the muscular man holding a number 2 pencil? Like, I don't want you to go John Wick on all of our asses,
the
okay?
whiteboard behind him is company confidential.
This is to put in perspective, me against the pencil, right?
Yeah.
Some streamers may hide behind it, but no. How many width of the pencil I have?
And just remember those guns if you're an
Yes.
evaluator and you don't return my goddamn cable. Vonda, our president and chairman of the board,
I am.
and one of our key investors. What are you're passionate about this. We wouldn't be here without you.
Oh, ignorance is our biggest strength.
I mean, if we weren't so stupid, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, right.
Thank God we didn't know what we didn't know. Because every time we hit a roadblock, we would have given up. But because we didn't know any better, we just kept going. It was, okay, so one more problem we have to solve, one more issue we have to figure out how to deal with it. And there's something to be said for not knowing that you've hit an insurmountable wall because you don't feel it, you don't know it, you don't think it, so you just keep plowing forward.
We're the bumblebee.
Yeah, we are the bumblebee. So I think we're just going to keep going.
Is it good to be here?
It's insanely rewarding to be here.
Oh, yeah.
And when you said the other night when we were programming the first 20 cameras, guys, we actually did it. It occurred to me, oh my God, we did. We just didn't even stop to think about it.
Yeah, we haven't done anything except tonight
Yeah.
to even acknowledge the fact.
And
of
there
what
is a
we've done.
reason for it. It's because for us, it almost feels like the very beginning. We didn't even stop to celebrate just because we made it this far. We've got whiteboard of features that have been waiting for the hardware to exist, and a platform, as I keep calling it. We needed that platform to exist in the first place. Just like imagine APC, right? And all of a sudden, if you accumulate 40 years of the software developed up to this date, right, for the PC, that's our whiteboard.
That he means that's Serge's wish list.
Right,
That's a-
yeah, the wish list.
And you wouldn't believe what I need to have done that has gone by the wayside to make
Right.
Serge happy. Because who's going to argue with those guns?
Right, you got to hit the gym a little bit more, Rich, to stack up against that.
You know, like, doesn't happen, man. You know, he wins every time.
I'm not going to challenge it.
I am standing between the user and the quality.
Yes. Somebody's got to be the muscle man. Somebody's got to be, the coordinator, whether it's
Yeah.
I'm the
physical.
one who says this pixel is off. I'm the
Oh,
one who says I see delay.
We have a
We
term.
have a term. It's called SND. And it stands for Surge Noticeable Defect.
Oh, SND. Okay.
Because no other human in the world will see it except for Surge.
Yeah.
And so long as those exist, we're not allowed to release something.
And seriously, he will look at this. He will look at something and say, "This pixel is different than this pixel," and I'll look at it and go, "Yeah, what?"
Excuse me. Bring out the monocle just to make sure.
So I mean, it's you have that balance of trying to make something work and producing something of exceptional quality, and then doing that with a phenomenally limited budget.
Right.
And that's one of the things we ask people who are evaluators of our product is to realize that we're 4 people with a dream who have built this company from our personal savings. And we're not a giant corporation. We're not like Apple that has got trillions of dollars of cash in the bank. You know, we're people that are just like anybody else. And we've sacrificed a lot to get here. And what we've accomplished, when you step back and look at it, is pretty amazing. And that's one of the things I had to remind myself of the other day was, you know, this is a 14-layer board that has 16 pairs of 1 gig channels in it that moves 4K of uncompressed data through it with no latency.
In a little box.
In a little box.
Yeah.
And we did it. And that's something that no matter what happens from this point forward, we can stand up and say, we're really proud to have accomplished.
100%. And got to have that.
And we couldn't have done it without people saying, keep going.
Yep.
Keep doing this. Keep moving forward. People like yourself, people like Nathan, people like Naaackers, people like Brendan. They're all these people who have been behind us and saying, keep going, keep doing this. And we don't give up.
There is just an interesting flashback. At some point, we always here now and then getting in touch with the really big names out there. Wouldn't go with the names of the companies, but believe me, pretty high up. Something you never end up not even facing the person, probably not even being in the proximity of 100 miles. And one of those individuals told us something very interesting. He said, you know, even all and everything that I've done in my life, I can never say that I've built something. That was an interesting realization.
Right.
That a person like that would say, look, I actually holding in my head a piece of technology that you can always be proud of because you actually build it. All I have, image, words, nothing else to it. I can't show a product to leave behind. That was quite a realization moment.
I remember
for all
who that
of us.
was. Yeah. That was an amazing meeting.
That's one thing that everyone should keep in mind is like, do you want to go and then leave nothing behind, or do you want to leave something tangible and say that you've built something? And that is something that I 100% stand by.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I tell people, I just want to leave the world pissing off a lot of people.
Yeah, that's me too. That's right.
It's not going to be hard.
Yeah, right.
Got a couple people that are probably already pissed off at me.
That means you're doing something right. Well, where can everybody find you? Website, social medias, you know, where can everybody get in touch?
It's really easy. We're at sub2r.com, SUB2R, which stands for a subsidiary of 2R, 1Y.
Our core company.
Our core company, which stands for,
Oh, come on.
everybody knows now.
2 Russians, 1 Yank.
Yeah, and you can guess who's who.
I love it.
Cameras are for sale now. We're in production, and we're actively looking for people to evaluate them. And
Don't get freaked out if it's not as beautiful at first as you see it on the broadcast.
Right.
Because search doesn't come with the
But
Oh,
one
camera.
thing
God.
for sure, that's what it
So-
can do. So training and manuals will
Yes.
be your friend. Everybody is always like, man, what's manual? Throw it in the garbage.
The
never-
wiki.
No, this time around,
You need
you're
'em.
gonna read it.
Yeah.
so we also have a term that Bonda has coined, which is about what we look like
What?
unapologetically.
Oh, industrial.
unapologetically industrial.
Okay.
We're not out to look like a slick smartphone. We are a piece of serious equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And serious equipment has a look to it and a
And a weight to
functionality
it.
to it and a weight to it. And
We
we've
don't
just
want you to be afraid of touching it,
Right.
putting it, pushing it.
driving your truck
It's
over,
a
although that
durable
voids the
piece of
warranty.
equipment, Yes.
Yeah, right. But yeah, we'll do it. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, but don't expect something slick and plastic and glossy, because we designed functionality before we designed.
No. Don't go
What?
there. No, because every inch, every millimeter of that housing of that camera design, everything is thought through. You can't.
Yes, we spent a lot of time on the functionality of it, and Serge spent a lot of time on the beauty of it, all the way down to, no, this has to be 1,000th of a millimeter to the right or the left. Trust me, that has gotten us into more shit.
That's why we have the rails to make it look pretty.
Yes. Speed rails, are something that will, you can gloss it up, you can make it, customize it to, well, you're not even using yours
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
picture. The one with the cool side rails?
Yeah, it's got the purple and aqua side rails on it.
Okay, it doesn't look like that in the picture, but that was,
The picture or the camera feed that you're looking at right now?
yeah. It just looks like one solid color. I
Oh
don't see the
no.
really cool.
No, there's no light on that one. Hold on, I got you. See that?
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
I wasn't gonna not use those. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. No, so we can bling with
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah. Bling with us and Serge. Well, Rich, Vonda, Serge, it was an absolute honor to be able to sit down and just talk with you guys. I'm glad you were able to take a night to kind of chill out, throw back some drinks, have some fun, and sling the product, because it's been a pleasure to be able to use this thing and to be able to have people to talk with, and being able to take that thing into the craft room, bust it open, and take a drill bit to the sensor board while that scared the shit out of me. It was an awesome experience, and just being able to just kind of be a part of your team has really been a fantastic experience lately. So thank you for not only taking a chance with me on the camera, but coming out of the show, giving us an awesome, multi-person candid experience. I loved every second of it. And I appreciate you for being you guys. And I love the tangents and just going off in any which direction. It's been awesome to kind of see what you guys go through on a daily basis and just spend some time with you.
Well, and we really appreciate you, because you represent who our community is, and you're willing to take a risk on us. And you're the kind of person that we want to support going forward. The person who wants to experiment and explore and push the boundaries, even with the friggin' clown. But this has been fun for us to work with you. And we look for more people in the community like yourself who want to take risks and want to explore and want to have fun. And this is just, as I tell people, this is the beginning. We just started something. We got to the starting
We finally
line.
got to the point where it can get fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We've gone through all the shit. We've gone through the worst of the worst. And now the fun begins. And
Thank you for having us.
yeah. thank you.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
In the words of a famous man, let loose the lions and midgets. May the fun begin.
Yeah. I love it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. We will be back next week with Middle Age Stream and Salty Sam for episode 89. Will be a free for all episode. And again, just thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you guys so much. It was an awesome episode. Everybody have a good night.
Thank
See ya.
you.
See ya.
Bye.
Night.